Blake's Buzz Live. Buzz, 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 buzz. It's Blake's Buzz Live. Buzz, 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 buzz. It's Blake's Buzz Live. More, hate less, read comics. It's Blake's Buzz Live.
Buzz, buzz, babies.
Buzz, buzz, babies, it's Blake. It's Monday. I know Mondays aren't everybody's favorite, but tomorrow's a holiday, and I have a killer, crazy, talented, awesome guest tonight. But before we bring him on, I just have a real quick announcement. I know I've been talking about this a lot, but it's for a good cause. I am the social media manager for Metal Ninja Studios, and we are doing the Trample IH Challenge. IH is intracranial hypertension. It's a buildup of spinal fluid. It's really a terrible thing for the people who are diagnosed with it. There's not many people in this group that doctors have, opportunities to, kind of test and do research with. So when people get diagnosed with this, it's basically a guessing game. They're not really sure how to treat it. There's no real cure. Every patient kind of reacts differently to different things. And so the Intracranial Hypertension Research Foundation, they need help, right? To, expand their research, pay people to run these tests. We are raising money from them. My boss, Joel Rodriguez, his wife, our COO, she was diagnosed with this and lives with it. And so it's very important to him. And so we are doing this challenge. We got some cool merch. The graphic you saw, we got like t-shirts, mugs, totes. We got some stuff. All proceeds go to the IHR Foundation. Or if you go to the website I'm about to post in the comments, you can just, you can donate like directly right there. But the most important thing is I know, times are tough for some people, and not everybody can donate, not everybody can buy merch, and that's totally cool. But what really helps, and I mean helps immensely, is sharing this page. So if you go to this website, if you scroll to the bottom, it's got a little, links for any of the social media stuff you guys use. Click the button, you share it. Seriously, it helps so much. We do a lot of work with the Kickstarter community and stuff, and we love this amazing comic book community, and all things are possible with it when you guys want to come together. And so we're really hoping we can bring you guys together and make a nice donation package for the IHR Foundation. So please check it out, and thank you always for listening to me talk about this stuff. And without further ado, the reason why y'all are tuning in tonight, I have got the creator of Echo, the creator of Kabuki. He's done cover art for every single comic in the world, I think. I don't know. He does covers for everybody, and every time they blow me away. His art is amazing. He is amazing. Where's my mouse? There we go. I have Mr. David Mack in the house. What is up, dude? So excited to talk to you again.
No, thanks so much, Blake. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for making this work.
Oh man, no, any time. Like, and I appreciate you saying you're happy to be here. Hopefully we keep that going for the remainder of the interview.
Yeah. No, it's gonna be great. You mentioned we spoke in Kansas City at Planet Comic Con, and it was great to do an interview with you there. So we got the long format one this time.
I get you more for 10 minutes. I usually around an hour or so. Like I try not to go over an hour unless you're like telling crazy good stories. So I'm not going to be like, David, stop it. It's an hour. Like,
okay,
we're done. But yeah, usually about there. It's not like a 4-hour live stream marathon or anything. I know you guys got lives, and you probably got deadlines and stuff too. You got to get back.
Yeah, lots of deadlines. But yeah, happy to be on here with you. Yeah, we can cover a lot of stuff. Echo, Kabuki, our Creator Own series cover they've been doing with Brian Bendis,
which is coming back. Event. I was gonna say soon, but we don't know if it's soon yet. But it is. You guys are working on volume 2 though, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I reread that. It's a great segue. We'll just start there. Why not? I reread that, kind of prepping for you, because I knew when we talked in Kansas City, you mentioned you guys were working on that, and I got really excited because I love a good spy comic, right? And this is a very different, odd, and kind of quirky spy comic, right? And it's so special and so unique. And you and Brian together, it's magic things happen when you guys get together, right? You have a long history of doing really cool shit together, and like it's awesome. And so very, very cool. And it's now going to be the new Jinx World home is Dark Horse. So the new stuff's going to come out from Dark Horse. And are they reprinting volume 1 or will reprint it later?
Yeah. Dark Horse collected that. That's already available from Dark Horse. They collected a full trade paperback of the entire volume 1. collection, which has all 6 issues that originally came out at DC Comics. And it was kind of my return to full interior art on a monthly series.
Did you hate it?
No, it was a really amazing kind of energy, a very frenzied energy. Like there's so many things to talk about with so many directions of this, but yeah, right now Dark Horse has a new amazing trade paperback on incredible paper. Brian Bendis and myself, we've worked together in many ways over 30 years together, but this is the first time we did our completely creator-owned series, and it's called Cover. It was nominated for 3 Eisner Awards, including Best Graphic Novel, and it's inspired by my overseas travels for the U.S. State Department for the last decade or so.
Yeah, which is crazy because I forgot about that until rereading that introduction where you kind of talk about some of your work there, and I like that you tried to get Tom King, who is a similar, like, well, he was in the CIA, but like, a similar, he was over in Iraq and stuff, but you guys both did like non-normative government work overseas and not the safest of areas, right? And like that was so cool how you did like storytelling workshops to dissuade the youth from like joining these terror organizations. Like you're legit hero. Like you might as well don a fucking cape, dude. Like that's so cool that was a means to make that happen through like art and the power of storytelling and the power of great literature, right? And for you to kind of use your proficiency in that to in a different way, right? In this kind of like political scheme. But you mentioned like you had friends that got kidnapped and you had to kind of you had to do some, you tried to do extra stuff to like fix that. Like you mentioned, like one of them was a diabetic and you guys were worried about them getting like the medicine and stuff. And like that, I feel so boring. Like I do podcasts and live streams and you traveled the world and fought evil for real. And then we're like, let's calm down and draw Daredevil, I guess. Like, it's just like, what a life, man. That I mean, do you ever miss that? Or are you kind of glad that you're kind of out of it now and more, living that creator kind of dream? Well, I mean, it sounds like a dream gig on my end, right? Like you do these amazing covers for numerous publishers, and I know deadlines get stressful and stuff, but you make money to draw superheroes and you draw them really well. So that's got to be pretty cool.
No, that's very kind of you. Yeah, some of the stuff you mentioned, it's if you get the paperback collection at Dark Horse now, it collects all 6 issues, but it also has all the covers and the variant covers, but it also has an introduction in it that talks about where the book and the story and the idea came from and some of my experiences overseas traveling for the U.S. State Department. And mentions some of the stuff that you were bringing up in the introduction, but yeah, it was incredible experiences. I was in the former Soviet areas. I was in the country of Georgia in 2016, 2017, and 2019. I was in North Africa a couple times in 2017 and 2019. And also Asia. I taught at the School for the Deaf in Africa, Asia, and Europe. I taught at all kinds of different schools. I taught at prisons, UNHCR camps, refugee camps. But there were, every time I was doing something, it was I was working with the local U.S. embassy of that particular country, and they had kind of very specific I guess an order of events. Each time it might have been different. The embassy was working with people in DC to organize something. So it was always a challenge, and it was always different every time I was doing something. And I was scheduled to be, pre-pandemic, I was scheduled to go to Moscow in 2020 before the pandemic happened. And then of course the the pandemic happened, and that shut down a lot of travel. And now, you know, Russia's in a war, so that's going to happen anytime soon. But the State Department liaison that I was working with in the country of Georgia, it's right. It used to be part of the Soviet Union, and it's right next to Armenia, Azerbaijan. It's not far from Iran and Turkey, so it's kind of right where Europe meets Asia, and there's this incredible strata of history and cultures there. And I was working with my State Department liaison, who was based there for a certain amount of time, and then so I kept going back there for a while, but he transferred to Moscow, and then was arranging for me to meet him then. But yeah, the pandemic changed a lot of things, so I do miss a lot of the traveling. You know, I was like often I was in a different country every couple weeks sometimes.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden, you know, the pandemic, there wasn't so much travel, and I haven't been going overseas as much since. I was in Italy for Lake Como last month, and I was overseas a couple times last year as well. But yeah, so much of those experiences, which really broadened my world, you know, went into that story of Cover, but also experiences that Bendis and I had as creators. So it's also kind of a love letter to creativity and storytelling and to comics in general in that story.
Definitely. And it's hard not to notice that Max looks a little bit like you, right? He wears like the hat and the same kind of t-shirt, and you know, like but I loved the like knowing that it was based, I mean, loosely based off of like, you know, this other life that you lived, right? It makes it even more endearing. But just, you know, for people listening right now, if you're not familiar with Cover, it's about this, you know, a pretty popular comic book artist who gets recruited by the CIA to basically like travel to international conventions, and he becomes a spy, and he's an aloof spy. Like he doesn't really know what he's doing or why he's doing it, you know, which maybe makes him a better spy, right? Because, you know, as we see when there's a scene where he gets interrogated, and he doesn't mind talking, but he doesn't have a lot to say because he's very much kept in the dark as well, with a lot of stuff. But yeah, this premise was just so cool, and it launched, like, you know, Bendis's relaunch of Jinx World, like with Pearl and stuff. Like there were a lot of great comics were coming out from this, you know, from this imprint.
Yeah.
And that was one of the stronger ones. But yeah, your interior art is so interesting in that, because we get some of that David Mack that we know, right? Like cover work David Mack, but then there's almost some like some softer, less detailed, for you, more traditional layouts and style, you know, you don't go like as crazy with like the backgrounds and the designs, and you kind of pull back on some of the character details a little bit. It was interesting to see you go, you know, back and forth, like how sometimes the characters get a lot of focus and a lot more color and more vivid and very strategic, very intelligent feeling. Maybe you were just tired and you were like, I'm only doing one good. No, I know that's not the case, but you know, work smarter, not harder. Right. But it was a very cool visual experience on top of the story. Like when you're involved in a comic book, it never bores me, right? I never know what you're going to do. I never know what to expect.
Yeah.
And you're just, you know, after all these years in the industry, you still shock us, right? Like when you drop these new covers, your new Daredevil and Echo cover. Oh my God. Oh my. And like, it's cool, man. It's cool. You're just always on it. You're like David Mack is always 10 out of 10. He never backs down. I love it.
That's really kind of you. Yeah, with Cover in particular, it gave us an opportunity to use a lot of different visual styles. So that was one of the fun aspects of the book, because there's the surface story that the character who is also, you know, there's a couple of friend comic book creators that, like you said, are sort of stand-ins in a sense for Bendis and I, and kind of explores our 30-year, you know, relationship. but there's also like this, there's also like a comics inside the comic, you know, there's the comic that the creator is making, and I wanted to have a contrast for that. And there's other creators that are making different comics. So they each have their own kind of look and style. And it was a really nice opportunity to be able to, you know, show and contrast, you know, the feeling and energy of the rhythm of the story. And I should also say it's a really fun combination of Bendis's storytelling voice and my own storytelling voice for this project, because we had been working on another creator-owned project for a while that we were going to do. And then I was involved in an event in Libya that I was telling Brian about that involved. I mean, most of my experiences are incredibly positive overseas and with the State Department. And there was an event that some things, you know, went differently than they expected it to go. And it was the case where you were talking about. I had been working with some people who were captured by the local militia, and I was trying to forward their names and medical needs and trying to get them legal advocacy and so on to get them released behind the scenes. And I was telling this to Brian, and Brian was like, hey, that other story that we're doing, we should, you know, we can do that later. We should tell this story right now, because this is kind of what you're going through right now. And this is so intense, and there's something to this. And I was very hesitant to think about doing that, because I imagined sometime in the future, I would sort of do like a very nonfiction, you know, tell-all memoir about much of my overseas travels. And, you know, Bendis's idea was, you know, there's a certain amount of things that, you know, you would fictionalize, and you would tell very autobiographical things. But I felt like there's a lot of ways that could go wrong, and you really have to get just the right tone to make that work the correct way. And we really put a lot of effort into finding the right tone. And I felt like we found like a really fun tone that was fun and accessible, but also didn't make light of the situation in the wrong way, but also was a blending of both of our voices, but also like a celebration of our friendship and everything we kind of learned in our careers that we could funnel into this story.
So a very important comic for both of you. Like it sounds like it's very coming from some like real dark, or not dark, but like real deep places of like pulling inspiration from both your lives, and these like, you know, intense experiences that most people don't have, right? Like, you know, I got irritated the other day when the grocery store didn't have the kind of cheese I wanted to make fancy food. And like, you know, these are my problems, and they're not real, you know, like I just don't have like those kind of, you know, a lot of us don't deal with those kind of issues. And so, yeah, to get to hear about stuff like that. Right. And then to have you guys implement that in a story in like a very organic and exciting way, you know, that's also not like overbearingly political, and, you know, it works as a great comic. Yeah. It's no wonder it's so damn good. And I loved it so much. Like, I can't recommend it enough. If anybody's listening, you gotta check out Cover. And speaking of listeners, we got a handful of people in chat here. We got, what's up, Ronan, coming from Australia. We got Sons of Mjolnir in the house. Matt, we got David Mack's got some fans here. Said love your Thor for Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology. Yes, we're talking about Cover, Darkwing Duck. I love Darkwing Duck. You're cool in my book. Lee Smith says he wish I would stop talking so much. I'm sorry. I'll try. Promise. No problem. Lee's obviously not familiar with my show, but no, I will try and let David talk more. I promise. But yeah, it's you and Bendis, you know, have a great relationship and a strong history in comic books. And when at Planet Comic-Con, attending the Marvel Knights panel with you and Jimmy Palmiotti and Garth Ennis was one of the coolest nerd experiences like I had at that whole convention. And I got to meet Kevin Eastman for the first time. So that's saying a lot, right? It was very cool. And, you know, the jokes you guys told and the stories you told and like the insider baseball information that went on, how you guys had to send art because emails weren't a thing, right? The things we forget, like how easier technology, you know, makes lives. But yeah, like you would have to like mail changes or like mail something, get it approved, ink it and paint it, or someone would ink it, or Jimmy would ink it, mail it back to you. You would paint it, mail it. It was just like this constant like revolution of mailing.
So Blake, you reminded me. I might have said this story at the Marvel Knights panel, but yeah, that was one of the ways I was able to introduce Bendis to Marvel. Was, we had been best friends since 1993, and when I met him, he was we were both making creator-owned projects in the indie scene, but he was also trying to make a living as a penciler. And when I met him, he showed me a creator-owned project he was doing. He was writing and drawing it, and I suggested he was using like a lot of different lines, and I suggested like a more heavier shadow ink approach. And his story is that I drew it like right on like the copy of his his presentation of the book, and he loved it. He got me, like the day I met him, he got me hired as his inker on a project. So we worked together as a penciler and inker team for a while in the early 90s. And when I was writing Kabuki, I really primarily just thought of myself as a writer, and I was looking for another artist to draw Kabuki. And originally Bendis was going to be the original artist for my creator-owned series Kabuki, which is also now at Dark Horse. So I have like these early 1993, Brian Bendis early Kabuki arts.
Oh wow!
But when I got based on Kabuki, I got hired to write Daredevil for Marvel at Marvel Knights, and I took over writing right after Kevin Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe Quesada, like bless his heart, like first of all, Joe Quesada was really nice to invite me to write Daredevil with him doing the art. He and Jimmy together, they were putting together Marvel Knights, and it was basically Joe called and said, we're doing like we're taking over 4 titles at Marvel, and one of them's Daredevil, and Kevin Smith is beginning to write it, and when he is done, you could take over writing as writer with Joe penciling and Jimmy Palmiotti doing the inking. And so I was very excited about this challenge to do this, for a couple of reasons we can talk about, but to get to the Bendis part, Joe also said, hey, why don't you also do some art? Why don't you do some covers for this? And I thought, Marvel readers don't want to see my kind of art. I'm really happy just writing. I'm really a writer, so I don't want to embarrass myself doing art at Marvel because it's not what their audience probably wants to see. And Joe Quesada was like, I'm so grateful that he insisted. He goes, okay, well, you do the whole cover to your first issue yourself. And if you don't really want to do it for the other covers, we'll do it collaboratively. Like you do a layout. He asked me to do a layout, and then he would pencil it. Jimmy Palmiotti would ink it, and then they would FedEx it back to me because this is before we would scan and email things. This is the late 90s. And they would send it to me in a FedEx package. I would do the layout, and then I would get the original pencil. It was Joe Quesada had penciled it, and Palmiotti had inked it. And then it's up to me to paint on the original, put it back in the FedEx box. First of all, paint on it and hope I don't ruin it, right? And then FedEx it to them. And, I had told Brian about this invite to write Daredevil, and he was very happy for me, and he had a lot of advice for me. But he was writing and drawing a creator-owned comic book series called Torso, and I took his Torso comics, his black and white Torso comics, and I put them in the FedEx box. So Joe Quesada called me and said, hey, I got the new cover in the FedEx box, but what are all these black and white indie comics doing here? I said, oh, that's my best friend, Brian Michael Bendis. We've worked together for years. Those are his creator-owned indie comics that he does. Why don't you take a look? And he looked at it and goes, oh, I don't. He said he didn't think his artwork was right for Marvel. Okay. And I said, well, why don't you read it? Just anyway. And so he called back. He goes, I do like his writing. So I was writing Daredevil with Quesada and Palmiotti doing the art. And then I basically took a job as the art. I immediately took a job as the artist after that first story I did when Joe left being the art to get Brian a writing job as the writer. So that was Bendis's first Marvel work and first Daredevil work. I wrote 9 through 15, and then on 16 through 19, I did the art with with Brian doing the Daredevil script for that. So that was like our first Marvel project.
Wow.
We've done a lot of stuff, but it was at that time we felt like finally a project kind of worthy of our friendship. But because we didn't have scanning and emails, like it was a great opportunity to put his comics in the FedEx box and get it to Quesada, who in the process of being the artist on Daredevil with me writing had also become editor-in-chief during that time.
Yeah. That's what a story. First of all, just crazy that like, you know, I adore your art, and I know I'm not the only one. And I saw your table at a convention, and there were always people there buying shit. So I'm definitely not the only one. So people love your art, your cover art, your Marvel work. And so for you to be like, you know, I kind of want to do this writing thing and not really the art thing, and for Bendis to be like, I kind of want to do this art thing and not really the writing thing, and to now look what happened to your careers later, right? And you know, like it's wild how that turned out. I mean, you know, and Bendis is like, you know, he even went to, you know, he did so much at Marvel, and then he was like, oh, I'm gonna go do that at DC now. See you later, guys. And you know, and it's just like the stuff that you guys have done and your impressive, you know, work history, to think that it started off like it could have gone in a whole different direction possibly, right? Like, and who would have knows what would happen. So how serendipitous life is, right? And again, the magic of comics, and whatever happened, I'm glad that it happened. And I also like that, like, I mean, I don't know if you're the kind of friend who jokingly reminds him about it, but I would be like, Ben, you owe me everything. Brian Michael Bendis, like you're here because of me.
No, it's kind of you to say that. No, I Bendis was going to make it and be successful no matter what. I could tell that when I first, we met in 1993 at a Chicago convention, and we both had little indie comics published by a very small indie comic company called Caliber Comics.
Yeah.
And we basically met at the table of Caliber and just started talking creative. We just really connected right from the beginning. But I was like barely 20 and he was like 25, 26, okay. which at that age, it's not a lot of difference now, but at that age, developmentally, those years are like dog years. So he probably saw me as like a very precocious young kid. And I even looked very young. I probably looked like I was 15 when I was 20. but he at 25 had a certain sense of professionalism and a sense of career. Even though he was, you know, trying to make it, he had an insight that I could see immediately that I didn't experience from other people, that I learned from quite a bit. I feel like we both learned from each other in an incredible way at very formative times when we were first starting, you know, to the point that, like, yeah, we didn't have email, but we both bought fax machines because we didn't live next to each other. So while we were working on our indie books, we would fax each other pages, go, hey, this is what I'm doing with like these shadows and light and my panel layout. And he would have his response and he would send me something, and what he sent me would like make me think of something in a new way. And I would be sending it, we'd be faxing each other on these, you know, these dumb fax machines that take, you know, 20 minutes to print out, you know, in the 90s. But yeah, and like I said, the first day I met him, he got me like an inking job too. So we were always kind of working together, talking about what we were working, philosophically, but also in a fun way, going to conventions together, and trying to include each other on projects. So yeah, it was fun to be, you know, to be able to work with him on Daredevil early on. And then from that first Daredevil script, that got him the offer to try out for Ultimate Spider-Man, which he got. Wow. And then from that, he created Jessica Jones, and he asked me to create the covers for that. But I owe a huge thanks to Joe Quesada, and Jimmy Palmiotti, number one, for inviting me to write on Daredevil. But when I was writing for Joe, and I had written for other artists before on Kabuki, and I always wanted to be sensitive to what I thought would be writing to those artists' strengths and what they wanted to write. So I said to Joe, you know, is there anything in particular you want to draw that you want me to include in the story? And he said, you know, no, write any Daredevil story you want to. He goes, I just ask one thing, and that's that you create a brand new character in the story. And that is what motivated me to create Echo for that very first Daredevil story. And I'm so grateful that he, presented that challenge to me right from the beginning.
Yeah. And all the places that's gone as well. Like Echo has been around on and off in Marvel history now since her creation. She's going to be on, or she's already been on Disney Plus and is going to get, more time, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe now. Like, did you know, because, when you made Echo, right? The mini series, I mean, spoiler alert, but like, this is written many years ago, right? So it's your fault for not reading it, audience. You should have read it. It's an important read in the Marvel universe. You should read it. But Parts of a Whole, like, did you kind of feel that you were onto something big with Echo and this kind, she comes off as a villain, and her and Matt have these very beautiful fights. And while her and Daredevil have these beautiful fights while Maya and Matt are dating, kind of, and it's all under the thumb of Fisk, right? Like, he's manipulating her to an extent. And like, I mean, did you get a feeling? Were you kind of like, this might be a thing, or were you like, were you surprised at how she like continued to become a bigger and bigger part, and then even after death came back and is now, like I mentioned in the green room, like, the new Daredevil and Echo series, and you just did a cover for that's jaw-droppingly gorgeous. But what's that like, making something and watching it, like, as the decades progress, like, so does your comic book baby, right? And you watch her grow and mature and evolve. Like, I'm never going to get to feel something like that. So, like, tell me how it feels.
No, that's really thoughtful of you to say. I wrote that story in 1998, and I believe it started being published in 99. So I created Echo in that story 25 years ago. So she has been around for quite a while. And like you said, when Brian was writing Avengers and Moon Knight, she was in that. When we co-wrote Daredevil End of Days, which was an 8-issue miniseries where Bill Sienkiewicz and Klaus Janson did the art, and Brian and I wrote it together, and Echo was in that. But it was really fun creating this character. And like you said, she somewhat adversarial to start with. And Quesada had said, a lot of people, they just keep using Elektra and Bullseye and Kingpin over and over again. And Kingpin's really a foe borrowed from Spider-Man. So he said, I want to make sure you create a brand new character in the story that comes from the Daredevil pages, and that was the genesis of creating Echo. But I love the idea of, in that story, I kind of focus on Fisk and Echo and Daredevil, and how each of them has like a very strong point of view about how they see the world and the perspective on the world, but also like a strong point of view of how they take information in, and how they something always interesting comes in a story if you take characters that have a unique point of view and a strong point of view, and you put them in the same room together and interacting in the same way together. And in the case of Echo, I thought, Daredevil has he experiences the world in such a unique way. So even though he in the past had related to Black Widow in a certain way, and he had related to Elektra in a certain way, still he sees and experiences the world so different from them that there's obviously a barrier between how other people are going to be able to understand how he sees things. And I thought the fact that Echo, who is deaf, experiences the world in such a unique way, that would be something that they would each maybe find fascinating with the other, and realize that each of them experiences it much differently than many people, but it also causes them to miss each other to a certain degree in their understanding, and that a lot of the information of the world Daredevil takes in is audio, and much of the information Echo takes in is visual, which Daredevil. So they're each kind of missing the the puzzle pieces that the other one
Yeah.
is constantly putting together. But at the same time, they still probably might feel some kind of kinship in that each of them kind of has to decipher the world in a way that most people don't have to do. And I thought that would be an interesting dynamic for them. But I also remember when I was writing that story, I put a lot of very personal things into the Wilson Fisk kind of origin story. There wasn't really an origin story for Wilson Fisk before that. So I kind of was thinking of that story as kind of much of it was sort of a Wilson Fisk origin as well. And little bits of that have found their way like into the first Daredevil Netflix series. And as you said, found its way into, you know, whole scenes and sentences that I've written 25 years ago were in the Hawkeye series. And Echo has her own series that comes out November 29th is the new Echo series. And there's other stuff I'm working on that I've been working on all year that I wish I could talk to you about, but I can't.
I know it. You guys always say that.
I'll say this. There's a TV series that I've been working nonstop, like for the last 6 months nonstop, but and put a lot of work into. That's still going to happen, but at the moment has been slowed down because of the writer's strike.
Oh, bummer.
But we'll talk again next year after this TV series comes out, and I'll be happy to. A lot of the stuff I'm doing with the TV in this TV series will play a big part in it, and it will definitely be something that we'll enjoy discussing. But you know, speaking of TV, I guess I'll also mention if people aren't familiar with it, I was able to work on the opening titles of the Jessica Jones Netflix series. We got nominated for an Emmy for that.
Yeah,
I went to the Emmys for this, you know, this comic book series we did like 20 years ago. That was such a strange series to be at Marvel, but in fact was my favorite Marvel series at the time. When Bendis was writing it, he would send me the scripts in advance and I would read them, you know, to get ideas to do the covers. And it was my favorite Marvel comic, but I never would have imagined that would have been a popular TV show at that time, you know? And,
I love that. That's a great series too. And your covers make it even like better. I mean, I know I'm trying not to kiss your ass too much. It's hard, but it like the stuff that you like just by having a David Mack cover. I mean, you do a lot of Kickstarter work and stuff too, like, or not a lot, but I mean, I occasionally see, you know, Kickstarter options where like with the David Mack variant, you know, and I understand that like people pay for these things, but I think it's very cool for you to kind of work with these, like this very indie corner of like kid, you know, because you know some people would not have time for that, and maybe they don't have time for that, or that's what they say, they don't have time for that. And so it's cool that you offer you offer your services to the indie community still, and you know, hearing your background and like where you came from, you know, it's cool that like where you're at now, it's like, you know, and I think Brian's similar, right? He's like, you guys don't forget your roots, right? Like you know, you guys had to work hard, pull yourselves up, and then fight to stay there, right? And it's cool when you guys see other creatives doing that and take time out of your day to, you know, do like what you did for each other, right? Comic books need more of that. You know, it's a weird environment right now. You know, if we love each other and help each other, you know, better comics get made. I think people forget that sometimes.
I like that. I like what you said. No, I enjoy working in a lot of different capacities. You know, I loved when I started writing for Marvel on Daredevil, but at the time I still had my creator own series, which was Kabuki, that I was doing at Image Comics at the time, and it was a project where, you know, I'm writing and drawing and lettering and doing the letters column, and every little detail, you know, was I was doing the entire book myself. And it's fun to have that and do that and to work from an indie point of view. But it was a great spirit of collaboration working with Marvel, because you're collaborating with the other creators, which is wonderful, but you're also collaborating with the rich history that these characters have, and that you have to be respectful to that. But it's like a twofold challenge, because you also as much as you're respectful to the rich mythology that these characters have and what the creators before you have brought to them, it's also a challenge that you can't say the same thing they already said. You have to bring something new to it as well. Like otherwise, why do it, right?
Yeah.
So I love the idea that, like, I've written a lot with Kabuki, but before Daredevil, I'd never written a character I had not created before.
Oh.
So with that comes that, when I'm writing a character I've created, I'm the creator, so I can't really do it wrong. But with Daredevil, that twofold challenge of that character comes with a certain legacy to it and a mythology, and you have to be in continuity and be respectful of that, but you also have to add on to it. You're standing on the shoulders of giants that have come before you, and you're getting to work with the vocabulary and the language that they've given to that character, but also contributed to the medium itself. So I also want to contribute something to the character and the medium itself, for the next person, who comes.
What was some good, like, research? Like, who was some of your favorite writers to research when you were knowing you're going to take over Daredevil? And I'm assuming you did some research and read some previous comics, maybe.
So I didn't do any research for it because I read it as a kid. I read the Frank Miller, Klaus Janson Daredevil as a child, and the joy of it for me was to continue where my childhood memory of reading Daredevil left off.
Nice.
So I wasn't trying to fill in everything that I'd missed from that time, but I really enjoyed. It was very magical to me when I stumbled upon the Frank Miller, Klaus Janson Daredevil work in the early '80s.
Yeah,
and so it was only really a certain amount of Daredevil I had read, but I had some sense of what had come before them as well, and a little bit of sense of what had come after them. But the magic for me was, that was kind of the backstory for me. So I felt like I already had a sense of who that character was from that time. But I also had to be respectful to what Kevin Smith was doing with Daredevil, and I wanted it to feel like there was a certain amount of a transition, a smooth transition as well. And just working in the spirit of collaboration with the creators I was working on. It was just a joy to work with them. And also, I was used to, like you said, the world of indie comics, Bendis and I both, where you do every detail of it. You deal with the printer, everything except the staples, right? And those were back in the days of letters columns. Every detail and writing the indicia, all that stuff. There was a lot of work and effort that we were used to. So when I'm writing Daredevil, I felt like I wrote the story, and then everybody else did the hard stuff, and magically a comic book appeared at the end. They took the printing and all the details, and I was able to write it and not have to draw it and do all the details, and I really like that.
That's amazing. I love that. That's one of the core strengths of your Daredevil run and the creation of Echo is just from your childhood love of reading Frank Miller, like, as it was coming out. That's beautiful. Now I guess, as I should bring up, now we've been talking about your Marvel work for a bit. The whole reason you decided to put up with me again was to come on and talk about this Kickstarter you got going on. Let me bring it up here. I'm going to post a link in the comments for everybody. If you haven't checked this out already, I highly recommend you do. You and Alex, these are two separate art books in one campaign. You can buy both. You can buy one, and there's a couple different versions of each, right? There's just a few days left, but this is your art book of, like, going on almost 30 years of Marvel, right? Like, and a lot of your cover work, some interior work. And there's some really great additions here. You're sitting at you guys broke 1,000 backers. You broke $250,000. No wonder you came on my show. The campaign needs some love, guys. If we could pass this around and get them some backers, no, I'm just kidding. Like, congratulations on this campaign. It's doing very well. And what two great artists, right? Like, two in Marvel, like, two very, like, big names, and not even just big names, but you guys can, anybody can pick your art out of a lineup, right? Very distinct styles. You know, you see it, if you see one of your guys' covers and you know who it belongs to. And you know, it's to have that kind of voice, that that artistic voice that so many can recognize. I think that's something that a lot of artists and writers, you know, strive for, and you've gotten there, which is phenomenal. But I mean, look at these books. These are the base editions. These are just the regular hardcover editions. You can get them with a dust jacket, get them with a slipcase. You can get them. I think there's signed options as well. There's a lot of different options here now. I know Clover Press makes pretty books, but it's how does something like this work, right? Because it's got Marvel's name on it, it's got Marvel's brand on it, it's got Marvel's work inside of it, but it's printed by a different company. Like, I mean, do you know any of the logistics in that, or are you just like, Blake, I don't know, I just work here, man. Like, I just showed up when they told me.
Well, first of all, thanks very much for mentioning this, because yeah, I can just talk, you know, comics and, you know, the process and the different books and projects, and we can get back into that. But yeah, the publisher will really appreciate that you have highlighted the art book, and it's going to be a very substantial art book. We're going to, you know, put in as many pages as they let us, and Marvel is also letting me include a certain percentage of new work, because, you know, in the, you know, we're going to choose like all of our favorites of stuff from, you know, like you said, the last 25 years plus of me working at Marvel, including not just comic book stuff, but TV and film stuff. I did the art for the opening or for the main titles of the film, the Marvel film Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Yeah, you did.
On that
my favorite MCU movie, by the way.
Me too. Me too.
Yes, nice.
My favorite Marvel film, and my favorite Marvel titles.
Nice.
I might be a little biased, but I'm very happy with, and that when it comes at the end of the film, and some of the making of that will be in this book as well. There's so much in there, you know, from the books, but you know, I've done a certain amount of private commissions and things as well. And I'm also allowed to include a certain amount of those and new work that people haven't seen in print before that'll also be seen in here. So there's a lot to, you know, I'm just going to fit in as much as they let me fit in. This book is going to be as big as they let us make it. And like you said, there's only 3 days left. It was kind of a short and sweet Kickstarter. And I also have to say the amount of gratitude we feel for how incredibly generous and responsive, you know, our audience has been with this Kickstarter. You know, they had a goal that we met the goal in like the first 12 minutes that the Kickstarter was open, and now it's went, you know, 10 times past the original goal. The amount of response to this has just been like incredible. And we also offer print sets, portfolio sets that you can choose with it, you know, like a dust jacket, a slipcase, original art. I offered 10 original like cover level commissions, and I think all 10 of those were bought immediately. And they just now let us offer remarks because of popular demand. There's signed books available, but people were also asking, hey, you know, if I can get it signed, why can't I get like a little remark on it? So the publisher made remarks available. I think it's limited to 100. I think the last time they told me there's like 14 remarks left.
Wow.
That you can order, which might, you know, sell out pretty quickly. But the way it was, to answer your question about how it works with Marvel, the way it was presented to me by the publisher is that they are working with Marvel and in a sense maybe licensing from it, but working with us, you know, the artists from the beginning, because that way it gives us, I mean, if Marvel just did this on their own, I wouldn't have been consulted about what to put in the book or how to do it. And, you know, might not even, in theory, you might get some tiny royalty or something possibly, but the way the publisher is, you know, there's much more artist participation, not just in and the revenue of it, but in the way of how you want the work presented and what work you can present and how to put it in there. But also, because they offered it this way, readers can kind of customize the option they want, with the book. Do they want just the book, or a signed book, or a signed book with remark, or with a dust jacket, or with a slipcase, or with a piece of original art? There's a pretty wide array of options. So it lets them set, the print run and print things based on what the readership actually is asking for. So I thought that was a reasonable way to do it too. So that's the way it was presented to me, and they had a lot of enthusiasm for it. So I thought, yeah, let's do this. Like, what a great opportunity to include my favorite work, from the last 25 years at Marvel, and put it. There is no other like David Mack Marvel art book, or an art book that includes like my work on Marvel TV shows or Marvel films, or this is kind of it. So like it seemed like a great way that they presented it to me, and judging from the feedback, to the readership, from the readership, it seems like it was the right thing at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, the project looks great. The book looks beautiful. You got your own trading card now, which is dope. Like, everybody needs one of those. But and I love that we're starting with like you and Alex, just like I said, just two big, two iconic artists that like so many people know, so many people appreciate, and again, I mean, the sales numbers, I think, replicate what I'm saying here. But yeah, I'm glad that they gave you a big like hand in design and feedback and stuff, right? Because I do know that, at the bigger two, like, that doesn't happen all the time, and like, with an art book, right? It's more than a comic, right? These are, this is like a little bit of your stories that you've created in Marvel, I guess you could say, are like a little bit of your soul too, right? But I mean, these are like lots and lots of pieces and elements of your career over time, and like where you started and where you went and where you're at now. And it's this like visual journey, and to not have your guys' input on that, I really think would make a lesser product, right? So like to have you guys embedded into this project as not just like the model-esque, like, smile, let us take a picture and use your art, right? It's like you're involved, you're in it, you're passionate about it, and these elements are going to show in the pages that you physically get to turn, right? It's going to make for a better product. It's going to make for more exciting, make for something, special for Marvel fans and David Mack fans. And it's very cool. And I think the prices are fair for what you're getting. Art books are expensive, even the soft cover ones, right? This is a big gilded edged, beautiful hardcover, several hundred pages, I believe. Like, there's going to be plenty of content to go around. And then you can get one or the other. You can get both. The slipcase edition, there's prints, there's all sorts of cool stuff. You can get signed stuff, remark stuff. I mean, I would buy this. I really want this. I'm mad that I can't right now. The thing is, it's like $150 isn't that much if you think about it. But then later on you'll think about it. But anyways, if you guys can get them both, I would get them both. I think, they're going to be two great art books, but I mean, you don't have to get them both. You can get one or the other. And I'm going to say to get David's because he's on the show, right? That's the smarter play here, but Alex is a very talented artist too. And they've both done great Marvel work together. So regardless of what side of the coin you choose, one or both, it's a very cool project with a lot of great Marvel history. And you're not going to be mad turning these pages and falling in love with this art, all over again. And there's plenty of options for everybody, right? If your dad owns a dealership, you got stuff like this, you can go all out. If money's a little bit tighter, you get the regular hardcover edition. Like I said, it's a fair price. The links in the comments, you got to check it out. It's such a cool project. I love Clover Press. Like, they make some really cool books. They've sent me a Dashiell Hammett illustrated book, the Continental, I think, and I still have to review it, but like just the book itself, the pages are nice, nice paper stock. The hardcover is nice. The illustrations are printed beautifully. Like they know how to make a good book. And this is, I feel like this is even going to get even more love. It's, this is like a prestige edition hardcover, this is an element of comic book history, and the creators know that, and these artists deserve that kind of respect. And so like they're going to get that within these pages. So again, it's a very cool project. Check out the link in that comment that I put. It's very cool. And I'm excited for you because it's, so many people know who you are, right? But it's to have something come out like that, that's like, a celebration of your 25-year journey, right? Like not everybody gets that. It's like winning a big award or something, that's got to be like, exciting and feel good too. It's like they're making a whole book about a celebration of David Mack. Like that's me. That looks, like I would be stoked if I was you.
No, thanks for saying that. Thanks for bringing this up and sharing it with people. And I guess it's been 25 years since I first started writing for Marvel, and it'll be 30 years since I first started creating Kabuki. I started creating it in January of 1993 and first started publishing it in 94. So wow. I guess next year will technically be the 30th anniversary of the first published Kabuki. So yeah, it's if you could just stick around, long enough doing something, hopefully it finds its audience, over time.
And you're drawing Kabuki again right now. You're doing some Kabuki variants for over at Whatnot, right?
That's right. Yeah. What a great shout out for them too. Yeah.
I do my research, baby. You come on my show, Blake. Some people think I'm a mess and talk too much, but Blake comes prepared. I know the name of this game.
Yeah. So I'll give a shout out to that book. It's a series called Ninja Funk from Whatnot Comics. And from the beginning, I hadn't even heard of Whatnot or that they were publishing, but not even Whatnot itself. When a friend of mine, JP, asked me to do a cover for his comic series. He was going to do like the Ninja Funk is a group of musicians and DJs and that I know. And then they said, oh, we're going to do a comic book as well. That's kind of like on the theme of our music. And would you do a cover for it? I was like, okay, yeah. So we worked out a deal. I would do the cover, and they said, oh, it's getting really well received, and we do a cover for every issue of it. So I said, oh, okay. And amazingly enough, like the first, a lot of people do indie comics, but a lot of them, don't always do it for the sales, or not all of them become hits or have longevity. But their first issue sold like in the six figures. Like it was not.
Yeah, they've been cranking out numbers.
Yeah, they've been like top sellers every issue, which was like an extra bonus for them. Like I'm really happy for that success of them. But they asked me if I could do Kabuki on the cover of one and have a little Kabuki cameo in their latest issue, which just came out this week. So I did a Kabuki painting for the final page of that issue, as well as a Kabuki cover. And working on some more Kabuki stuff at Dark Horse Comics. Dark Horse is my home for my creator-owned stuff. Nice. All the Kabuki stuff, my other art books are at Dark Horse, and the creative home for Brian Bendis. All of his work and our creator-owned series cover, and we're working on the new series of cover. It'll come out through Dark Horse. We had optioned that as a TV series, and last year we were like that was our day job, for a long time, was working on the TV series of that together. And besides optioning it, Bendis had worked out the deal to be the writer on it, and I had worked out the deal to be the director on it. So we were working on that. And I've been directing a lot of music videos and things too, in addition to like opening titles for TV and film. I'll give a shout out to Robert Rodriguez and Gabriel Luna. I worked on the opening titles to their TV show called El Matador.
Yeah.
El Rey Network. And it's great to see Gabriel Luna on like all these TV shows and films now, because he was the star of of this TV show for Rodriguez that I did the art for the opening titles for.
Oh, that's cool.
I'll also give a shout out. I do direct music videos as well. If anyone's heard of Dashboard Confessional, just go to YouTube, put in like David Mack Dashboard Confessional. The song I did the video for is called We Fight. And I did a few music videos for Amanda Palmer, some stop motion, some animation, a variety of things. I also did a music video for Neil Gaiman in Pen America. I've worked with Pen America quite a bit. And I'll give a shout out to, you mentioned comments. I'm going to address some of the comments here.
Yeah, I'm bad at that. I'm sorry.
So he says, Mac in the house, love you, your Thor and Neil Gaiman Norse mythology. All of Neil Gaiman's creator and stuff is also a Dark Horse with Bendis in mind.
Yeah.
And so I do all the covers for Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology comic series. And he's got a brand new hardcover slipcase volume of that was just revealed that I did the cover for. You
did volume 1 too, right? That gorgeous volume 1.
Yeah, and I did all the covers for Neil Gaiman's comic book series of American Gods.
That's what I'm thinking of. American Gods is the first slipcase.
Yeah, they had like it won the Eisner Award last year for like best collected or reprinted.
Oh, cool.
Design basically. So I did the design for the slipcase and the cover, as well as doing all the covers for the individual issues. And I've been doing a certain amount of work with Neil Gaiman, also his Sandman characters. You can find on the website that sells the Neil Gaiman merchandise. It's neverwhere.net. His director of development, actually, I think she's vice president now of Neil's corporation. Her name is Kat Mijos. And so I work with her, and on her website, she offers prints that I do of Neil Gaiman's Sandman series and like portraits of all the Endless. And I've been doing a lot of his cover work for him.
Can you illustrate a few pages or either a few pages or the whole thing of his poetry collection too, or something like that not long ago?
You remind, I've done a few things with him. You reminded me something else. We both contributed to the new Tori Amos.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I did
another Eisner nominated project. Like
yeah. I'm up for an Eisner right now with it's if you're familiar with the author Margaret Atwood, she created the Handmaid's Tale, which I read in my freshman year of college for class. I got to work with her on a story that we did for the Tori Amos book, and Neil also contributed to that. And so for that short story, both Margaret Atwood and I are up for an Eisner nomination for Best Short Story. So I'll go to the Eisner Awards ceremony in I guess 2 weeks, or 2 or 3 weeks in San Diego, and we'll see what happens. But I see Darkwing Disco Duck in here, who's been a great supporter of my work. And
yeah, he's got some Mac originals. I saw that. I was jealous.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for the support with the originals, and I had the opportunity to meet him in Seattle at Emerald City Con this year. So yeah, I've just been so grateful for like the readership and the fans that stuck with me over the years and made given us the ability to keep doing this and make a living doing it. So we're super grateful for that.
Yeah, you're very, very kind to the people at your table, and you were also like, I remember it was the Sunday night of the con, and it was winding down, and like you were packing up your table, and Maria Wolf was like right across from you, and she did an Echo remark on her Echo cover that she did, and so like I'm trying to get her to. I mean, I'm not like telling her to hurry up, right? But I'm like thinking, I'm like, oh my God, David's about, because I wanted you to sign it too, right? I wanted her remark and signature and you to sign it. And I was like, it'll be the perfect thing for my comic book collection. And so like you're packing up, and she's like, when she does commissions, she'll keep adding to stuff. She spends all this extra time on it, and it's a beautiful, awesome thing for her to do. But I'm like, keep looking over my shoulder, and I'm like, I'm gonna miss. He's gonna leave. And finally, so like she finishes, and I go like bounding over to your booth, and I was like, David, I'm so sorry. Will you sign this for me real quick? And you're like, oh yeah, man, no problem. And I was like, whew. I was like, just made it. But but yeah, it's so that's one of the coolest pieces I have like in my collection right now. Is got your like, I don't know, I think you have a cool signature too, but you're like your awesome signature, her Echo remark on the Maria Wolf Echo cover from the Voices one. Yeah, just a very cool. It was a cool deal for me, because I love Echo. I really do. I love the women in Matt Murdock's life who make his life more difficult. Like, you know, it's just like, I think one of Matt's weaknesses is women. And I think a lot of the writers like, no, and it's not the women that are the weak links. It's how Matt deals with the women in his life. Like, you know, like I don't want to sound sexist or anything, but like Matt does not handle women drama well, right? Like he just always gets wrapped up in crazy shit. And because of who he is, so do the women in his life typically, right? And so, you know, to the way you brought in Echo and like this almost like love triangle with like Fisk and Echo and Matt, because in a sense it is like that, even the violence between Fisk and Matt you could kind of label as romantic, right? It's a different kind of rivalry. There's more passion and intensity there than a lot of typical like people, you know, random elements and heroes rogue galleries. So like you know, I love that you brought that in, and I love that the world is getting to experience Echo in a new way. I love that she's back in the comics. I love that we're going to see her back on the screen again soon. I did have one question, and I feel like I might be poking the bear, but I'm going to poke it. I know that you and Brian are tight, right? And you guys are these great friends, but like, what was it like when you build this character who's very important to you and is making waves in books, and then Bendis brings her on to Moon Knight, right? And then like when Brian told you he was going to kill Echo, like was there a debate? Were you like, Brian, I don't know if that's the best idea, pal? Or, you know, like, did you just kind of go with it? Or like, were you like, why does my best friend want to kill my comic book baby? You know, like I feel like that was like to be a fly on that room, right? To hear that phone call or whatever. Like what happened there? Or did you just kind of trust him? Or you kind of like, if you think she needs to die, I guess, man, or like what was the process of that discussion?
Well, Blake, when I die, I want to die a Marvel death. So I come back in a few months in a new costume.
Don't we all? That'd be great.
Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't have any, you know, anyone who dies in Marvel. If it was, you know, I knew I would be writing the character again eventually.
Okay.
So, I wasn't that. You remind me of something else too. Under Bendis's writing, Echo was the original Ronin. You know, that was a reveal in Avengers when. Yeah, I could have. It's very interesting that Brian chose to like use her. I never would have imagined she would have been in the Avengers as well. And
yeah.
While I'm thinking of it too, and as far as shout outs, I was really impressed by the actress who portrayed Echo, Alakwa Cox.
Yeah, she's great. She's great.
Yeah, I thought she did a great job. And, you know, the character is indigenous and deaf. And I thought it was wonderful that they found an actor that really looked like the character, but was also indigenous and deaf. And I thought she brought like a great, you know, authenticity and sensitivity to the character. And I was really happy with, I mean, honestly, I'm sure I'm biased. It was my favorite part of the Hawkeye series. And the scenes with her, you know, like I said, were scenes that I had, some of them scenes and words that I had written 25 years ago. So yeah. It was kind of an emotional experience for me to see some of that brought to life in such a respectful and like well done way. There's a lot of ways for it to go wrong, you know? And so I'm really grateful for how right it went. And I'm really thankful that Alakwa Cox has done such a great job of portraying Echo. And I'm really looking forward to the Echo series that'll come out later this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, comics are an interesting medium full of, you know, give and take and, you know, collaboration. And, I saw another comic that cracked me up, that made me think. Ronan the Accuser said, did pages ever get damaged like that? Because we were,
when you're mailing them back and forth. Yeah.
yeah. And these days I don't send off the originals. And there's collectors who will want to buy them, and I don't want to risk sending them off. And I also want to make sure I scan them the proper way and only send them the correct scan that's going to look the way I want it to look. Because often I would send original. In the past, my experience was I would send all these originals that I agonized over getting them looking just the way I wanted them. And either the scanning, whoever scanned them, or the printing process, somehow in the reproduction, they would be published, and I would be so, disappointed with how much disappeared, from the original look. So one of the main things about, technology now and how you can just email the artwork or transfer the artwork is you can make sure to scan it properly or photograph it properly. So it has the best chance of reproducing most accurately.
Yeah.
So I love that. But to answer your question, I don't know how much of this I should talk about, but
all of it.
there had been there was an entire issue of I should be careful with how I say this, but yes, sometimes original art was damaged or disappeared. And I'm fortunate enough that in the case when that happened, the publisher would basically buy it and pay me for it. And cool. So you might initially there were moments where I went, they were like, hey, we got to tell you this serious situation that happened. All of this stuff that we set it right here and now it's gone. And then I was man. Wait, what? Did you make sure to scan it first? They're like, okay, we got to scan. I'm like, okay, so it's still going to come out, like, okay, great. And then, but you'll still feel a certain amount of disappointment, but then suddenly, they'll pay for it. And so suddenly you go, oh, okay, I sold a certain amount of this. But also there was stuff that was damaged or disappeared in certain situations that I won't be too specific about. But so there was a certain amount of disappointment, but at the same time, I'm grateful that in those situations, the publisher did step up and try to make it right.
That wouldn't be why there was a random issue added in between the penultimate and final chapter of parts of the whole, is it? Because there's that weird.
No, I think that was because Joe Quesada, was penciling the story, but he also became editor-in-chief in the midst of it. And so he was getting increasingly busy just running Marvel and all the other books and doing all the things that editor-in-chief.
So you guys just bought him some breathing room. Okay.
They actually asked me if I would do the art myself for one of the interior issues. And in retrospect, I probably should have said yes. But at the time I was like, oh no, I just want to, I really thought of myself primarily as a writer. And I felt like, oh, that's not really what I was trying to do. So there are amazing examples of times where people gave me great offers and opportunities and it clicked with me and I did it. And I'm really happy that I said yes. And there's also incredible offers and opportunities that I had that I said oh, I'm really busy, writing and drawing Kabuki and it's coming out and it takes everything I do to do that. And then in retrospect, I had the offer to write Iron Man before Warren Ellis wrote it.
Wow.
And in retrospect, I should have done it. I had to offer to write Batman back in that time.
Whoa.
There were a lot of different offers that I had to write other projects that I probably should have made the time anyway, even if it made my Kabuki series late. But I was I was already happy writing and I was happy writing and drawing my creator-owned project. That was kind of what I wanted to do, at that time. And so I was really happy to be able to do that.
I love that so much. I love Kabuki. You were very cool. My buddy Brody introduced me to Kabuki and I got that volume 1 from that volume 1 collection. There's the 4 volumes from Dark Horse now. And I read it and that was kind of I'd seen some of your covers, but like that was my first like intro to like your interior art, your storytelling, your writing, you know, like my first big Mac attack, you could say, right? Just like, and it blew me away, man. And I'd never read anything like it. It was just wild. And you know, she's sharp and edgy like a katana, but she's also vulnerable at times. The depth and the layer and respect and agency you give her, like on those pages, like both physically or visually and textually, so much great going on there. And to know that like you turned down Batman to keep working on your baby that you were close to, like, he's so many, I'm sure people told you were nuts too, right? And like hearing it, you're like, oh my God, why would you do that? But then when you experience Kabuki and see how special it is, and how pertinent and relevant and beautiful it is, even to this very day, even after you yourself have evolved as a writer and artist, right? And it still shines, man. And so like I love that. I love that you saw its importance, and its importance to you as well as its importance to the indie comic scene. And you literally were like, nothing gets in my way for this. Not even Bruce Wayne, not even Tony Stark. That's I've been doing interviews for a long time, and or not a long time, for a couple of years, but I've interviewed like hundreds of creators, and that's one of the coolest things I've ever heard, dude. Like I am that's so impressive. And I would love to read your Batman, but I'm so glad you did that. Like, I'm so
thanks.
glad.
Yeah, no, sometime I would love to do a Batman story sometime. But yeah, at the time it was just, that's where my head was. And, that's what I was doing. More recently, I often will get offers that, there's a power in saying yes to things, and there's also a power in saying no to things.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll get a very unique offer to do something, and I'll think, oh, I don't have time for that. I've got all of these months are already planned for, but I'll go, that's so cool. I'll just say yes anyway and figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
I mentioned that music video I did for Dashboard Confessional. I was on a flight from Japan to Singapore. It's a 7-hour flight. Like, you'd think it's maybe they're in the same neighborhood or something, but it's actually a really long flight. And sitting next to me was this guy who started talking to me. And it turned out his name is Chris Carrabba, and he's the lead singer to Dashboard Confessional. And we were talking up and I was actually on a State Department trip at the time in Singapore. So he was like, oh, what are you doing out? And so I didn't mention comic stuff. He was like, what are you doing there? I was like, oh, I got to do this stuff and State Department stuff. And he started talking about his love for comics. I was like, oh, you like comics? So, well, I do some comics too. And he's like, oh yeah, we had one of our songs was in the Spider-Man film. I was like, oh, that's awesome. And he was showing me like all his on his phone, all kinds of photos of different stuff, and I could tell he's really into comics. And so I was in the middle of making an Amanda Palmer music video that I was doing with stop action filming, in which I would put like a camera facing down, and I would have a lot of three-dimensional objects, and I would move them around and take a photo and move them around.
Wow.
Take a photo. And so I had like an incredible amount of hundreds of photos of, interesting looking photos on my phone. I was showing him, I was like, oh, this is, I'm an artist. I also do comics, and here's this music video I'm making. And we ended up talking for 7 hours, that whole flight from Japan to Singapore. And I had some work at Singapore, also did a convention there, and they were there doing a concert. But by the end of the flight, he was like, oh man, you gotta direct our next video. And so I figured maybe 2 years down the line, I will hear from him, and we'll do a music video or something. And then I did what I did there, and then probably in the next week I got an email from his record company, which was I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was a fairly big and record company that I knew of. And they're like, oh, so I understand that you're directing the new music video for Dashboard Confessional, and it's due in 1 month. It's due in 30 days.
Oh no.
And yeah, and I was like, oh yeah. So and I was just about to go on a State Department trip to Europe, to like the former Soviet areas. And I had all of that time was already planned out. I was going to be traveling, and I had stuff planned every day that I would be doing with the embassies and State Department and trips and stuff. But I just said, I said yes anyway, and just said, I'm going to figure out how to do this music video and turn it in 30 days, even though I'm doing everything else at the same time. And a lot of times I will do that. And I say yes to things that I don't know how to do when I'm asked, but once I finish it, I know how to do it. And a lot of comics is like that too. You know, anytime someone asks, you know, about how to do a comic book or if they should do a comic book, you know, Bendis and I talk at, Brian Bendis teaches a writing class as well, university class. And I usually, I'm a guest speaker every semester for him. And, you know, we always say, if you want to make a comic, the only way to learn how to do it is just to do it. You know, there's no like secret handshake ahead of time. And every time you're doing a project, even if you've done a lot of projects before it, each time you do it, it's a new set of circumstances and a new set of problem solving that you kind of have to figure out anew each time. So that, you know, that's my experience with things, is that you, no one's gonna, like, you're not gonna feel a security ahead of time. You're gonna, you know, you're gonna feel like you don't know how to do it. But once it's done, then you'll realize you figured out how to do that one, you know?
Well, and as like an artist too, like you don't always want to be in your safe spot, right? You want to get out, you want to break out of your comfort zone a lot and try new things and take risks and, you know, experiment with what you know and what you don't know to stay fresh and because you don't want to look at your work as stale, right? And I think you would be the one who would be like overly critical of that. Like you're like, oh, I'm doing too much of the same thing. Cause like, I mean, your audience is always hungry and we love what we get. So, you know, like I don't think it would be easy for us to look at your work like that, but you know, to try these new things and experiment. And like I said, get out of your comfort zone, you know, and then maybe, you know, your next cover, you try something crazy or you know, you try, and then that ends up working. And like, you know, that's important too. It's, you know, it's, you know, yeah, you sometimes, like you said, sometimes you got to say no because you're busy or it's just impossible. But like, you know, other times, like you got to say yes, even if you think you're not the person for the job or you don't know if you can pull it off. But like, you're like, hey, I got this opportunity and I'm going to run with it and I'm going to do the best I can. Because, you know, and I feel like that's worked out for not just you, but for a lot of people, myself included. I stumbled into some weird stuff. Like I do a lot of PR work and stuff now that I never really thought I was going to be doing. Right. And, you know, like I said, yes. And now I don't have to work a day job and it's nice, you know, for now. We'll see what happens, but you know, it's cool. I get to work. I get to hype comic books for a living and work with publishers and manage social media networks and stuff. And like, you know, I'm not writing or making comics, but I'm promoting them and working with the creators, which to me is equally fulfilling. And I'm learning a ton about like the industry, about even a little bit about design, all sorts of cool stuff. So yeah, I'm with you, man. Sometimes you just gotta like, don't think about it, I guess. Right. You just like, before they even finish the sentence. Yes, I'll do, you know, sure. Done. Even if you find out a week later, you only got a month to shoot and edit and produce a movie or music video.
Other music videos where I basically had like 2 weeks to do them. And I thought, okay, well, 2 weeks from now, I'm going to turn in something. And, you know, so I got to figure out the best way I can do that. And often, you know, it was like this with the dashboard one too. Often I would just kind of reverse engineer how much like say something's going to be an animation or something, and maybe it's going to be 6 or 8 frames per second. And I think, okay, how many hundreds of images do I have to make per day in order to keep the schedule? You just kind of like reverse produce it and figure that out. And then you have to dive in and problem solve it and keep up with it that way.
Well, David, one thing I've learned about you that I guess I already knew, but it has been fortified and solidified and proven true. You are just an impressive individual, sir. You're just, I love your art. I love your drive. I love your love of comics. You know, both indie and the bigger 2 side. you're very, meeting you in person, I was really surprised how, because you always wonder what, everybody says don't meet your heroes, right? And so it's like, you always wonder, like, am I going to meet this guy? He seems really cool, but like, what if he's not? But like I said, or I started to say before, when my buddy introduced me to Kabuki, you saw us talking about it on Twitter, and you just like hopped in the comments like we were old buds, and just like you just were like talking to us about it, and we were both like DMing each other like, oh my god, David Mack is just talking, like, like he's just treating us like we're people. So, but it's just, I really appreciate how you treat your fans, how you treat your peers, how you just you're just a very positive, good dude, and it's been an absolute pleasure to get to talk to you, and actually, like, not just a quick 10-minute interview, but to like really dive in and talk to you and learn about your career, and all the stuff, a lot of the stuff we've talked about is going to be, I mean, obviously not like the music videos or some of the indie comics work, but like a lot of this Marvel stuff is encapsulated in this beautiful tome that we talked about that you can get on Kickstarter, ladies and gentlemen. And it's a celebration of a career worth celebrating. And I really hope you guys check that out, and check out Kabuki. I did want to ask, I'm sorry, and we probably can't say anything, but I didn't realize that the 30-year anniversary of Kabuki was coming up. You guys planning on, I don't know, like not even like new content, but maybe reprinting those hardcovers would be kind of nice for a 30th anniversary. Like, I don't know. I just, I would love to upgrade my paperbacks to a hardcover if ever possible.
No, I thanks for saying that. Yeah. For, I think it was maybe the 20th anniversary, Dark Horse made these incredible Kabuki library volumes. Mm-hmm. So we collected all the Kabuki content into 4 giant volumes. Each of them is over 416 pages. So, so much of my, work, really the foundation of my work in comics is this Kabuki story. There's like over 1,600 pages, that I've written and drawn. So they made these 4 incredible, like oversized hardcover library volumes. And I guess they were just intended just for that anniversary, and they didn't sort of keep them in print forever. And then for the 25th, they basically took the content of that, but they made the Kabuki Omnibus, which are paperbacks, but and they're comic size, but they're very thick. Each one's 416 pages, and there's 4 of them. But I'm really happy with the exact content and the way I was able to design the books and all the extras I was able to include in it. And so really those are the definitive formats for me. But I do have a lot of people who ask me, they have most of the hardcovers or most of the omnibus, but one of them or another is sold out and they're trying to find the other one. So I am discussing with Dark Horse right now. My intent was like, why don't we offer those oversized hardcover volumes, the library volumes again, because people love those so much. They were also suggesting maybe doing collecting everything in one giant book, but I'm like, maybe people would they were like, that's something different that we haven't done before. But I'm like, yeah, but that's like an 8-inch thick book or something.
You'd need like a hardcover omnibus with like 2 volumes. I feel like you would really because that's, once you get over like 1,500 pages or really 1,000, 1,200, they just like, gutter loss is a big, because I buy a lot of omnibuses. I love them. Right. But I do like, it's sometimes if they aren't printed and built correctly, the gutter loss is a big deal. But yeah, 1,600, 1,700 pages. That's a lot for one
something.
Volume.
There'll be something. So I'm glad you asked that. And you mentioned us meeting at the convention. I'll give a shout out. I'm going to be at the San Diego Comic-Con, of course, this month. But a couple of days before that, I'm going to be at the Torpedo convention. Jim Lee will be there. It's in Los Angeles. So if anyone's in LA and they're not going to make it to San Diego, you can see me. I think it's the 15th and 16th. It's not this Saturday and Sunday, but the next Saturday and Sunday. I'll be signing in LA there. It's a smaller show with just a few convention creators, and I think there's like a big emphasis on original art there. But then I'll be doing San Diego for sure. And I want to give a shout out to an editor I'm working with on this project, Chris Stevens, and Clover Press, Hank and Robbie at Clover. and also David Hyde at Superfan and Hannah who helped arrange this with you. So I'm really grateful that you you opened up this forum and had me here with with your audience.
Dude, same. When I got that email that was like, do you want to interview David Mack? I was like, I didn't even respond yet. I screenshotted it and like sent it to a couple of my like my good nerdy friends. I was like, guys, they were like, are you gonna do it? I was like, I gotta reply. I had to tell like I was so excited. Like, for real, man. You like your career, your art, that, ever since like I fell in love with kabuki, the more I learn about you, the more I've experienced of your work. It really does. It sings to me in a special way. And you just have always seemed like a great dude. And you really love comics and you really love art and your style and how it evolves and your new covers and everything, man. It's just it's very impressive what you do, and the more I learn about you, the more impressive you become. So like you're like a magician, and it's amazing. And I appreciate you, like both of us. We didn't have a lot of time. We had to make it work, and I'm so glad it did, because talking to you for this last hour and a half has been really, really special to me, and I really hope you know that. And I'm really excited for more of my audience to experience that. I maybe we met, but I did not deliver any food. I was there as press at Planet, just like handing out microphones to everybody. I did 11 interviews that Sunday. It was insane. Like, people were like, Blake, you're crazy. I was like, I just want to make sure Planet gives me a press pass again next. I was like, I'm working. Like, they gave me this opportunity. I'm gonna make the most of it. But yeah, man, it was so great. It was great to meet you. It was great to talk to you again. I'm so excited for this art book project. It's not a typical art book. Like, really, like, if you guys go through that Kickstarter page, really read about it, check out the images that they've included. I think we both said Clover Press is a great press. They make beautiful books. They just know how to make striking, beautiful, nice books that are shelf worthy. And this is going to be something like that. So I really encourage you guys to go check that out. And keep an eye out for cover. Keep an eye out for possibly more kabuki. Keep an eye out for those new whatnot variants. Like, David's got some cool stuff going on, and he's got some cool books that you can buy right now and experience. And I encourage you to do so. Like, kabuki will rock your socks right off your weird looking feet. And your Daredevil stuff. Like, if you guys haven't read David's Daredevil stuff, like, go back in time and like, check out Parts of a Whole. And then what is it like? Then you came back on like 51 or so to co-write.
Yeah, I did. I've done 4 different Daredevil stories so far. I did Parts of a Whole, which is issues 9 through 15. And then a Wake Up, which is issues 16 through 19. Okay. That's with Bendis. And then I was asked to make an Echo story. Originally, they said it was going to be an Echo limited series, but they published it in Daredevil as Daredevil 51 through 55. Yeah. Actually, I saw recently that I think they're offering what they're calling the Echo Saga, which includes my 9 through 15 plus my issues 51 through 55. And 51 through 55, I did everything. I wrote it and drew it. Mm-hmm. That was the story behind that. Was I was just going to write the Echo story, and I met this is like back in like 2002. I was in Paris, and I met an artist back then by the name of Gabriel de Otto, and we really hit it off and hung out quite a bit in France. And then I introduced his work back to Marvel when I got back and said, "Oh, I think you're going to be great to do the art for this Echo series." And I introduced his work there, and he did a certain amount of Echo paintings as for me to show Marvel, to get him this job, to get him a job at Marvel, proper in the US. And in theory, we both were going to do this Echo series together, and we were kind of pals, from Europe. And Bendis, he immediately got work at Marvel, but he started working on Bendis's Secret Wars first. And the way the schedule lined up, I had to do the art myself for the Echo story, which I'm very happy to do in retrospect. But I was in Italy a couple of years ago, and I went to Gabriel de Otto's studios in Rome, and I went to a studio in Rome, and it's been like 20 years, right? And he's had this incredible career in the past 20 years. And he was like, he was so grateful and thankful, and said like, hey, in appreciation for, you know, introducing my work to Marvel, he gifted me with one of the original Echo paintings that he had done 20 years ago for me to show to Marvel, to get him Marvel work.
Wow.
Amazing guy. I was able to see him in Italy a couple times since then, and it's always great to see Gabriel de Otto there. But yeah, it's so I heard that's being collected, both of those Echo stories together.
Nice.
But it was funny when I was doing that book. You know how they have the name of all the creators on the book. You know, the only name on that book was David Mack. You know, Daredevil, and it was the Echo series. And then the other Daredevil story we did after that is Bendis and I co-wrote a series called Daredevil End of Days. And, you know, growing up, we were reading Daredevil with Frank Miller and Klaus Janson, and Frank Miller and Bill Sienkiewicz. And so we got to collaborate with, you know, two of our heroes, Bill Sienkiewicz and Klaus Janson, who, you know, we were learning from, you know, their work in comics when we were kids, you know, and so we got to work with them every day, you know, for years on an 8-issue series. And so it was such a great experience. So those are 4 different Daredevil stories. And the way I'm putting this art book together, the Marvel art of David Mack, I'm not doing it as just a whole bunch of images. I'm going to put it in sections, kind of different eras of my work at Marvel. So you'll have, you know, the Daredevil stuff, the Jessica Jones work, covers, you know, the opening titles for Winter Soldier, the Jessica Jones opening titles that got us an Emmy nomination. I did other set work for Jessica Jones, but we were talking about Kabuki. People might not remember, there was also an era of Kabuki, and for me at Marvel, where Kabuki was published at Marvel for a certain.
I didn't know that. Whoa.
Yeah, back in 2004, myself, Brian Bendis, and Mike Oeming, we formed a new imprint at Marvel called Icon. In fact, I named it Icon, and we formed it specifically to publish Kabuki and their book Powers. And so from 2004 to about 2012, Kabuki was published by Marvel. Not just Kabuki, but my art book series Dream Logic, and an art book series called Reflections. That was all published at Marvel. So I also thought, you know, I'll probably have like a little section of it'll have all these different eras and sections of my eras at Marvel, and one of them will be the Kabuki section. So you'll also have some of my favorite Kabuki covers and scenes and details of
so
Kabuki
cool.
that I published while I was at Marvel. So there'll be quite a lot packed into this, and it won't be just a series of images. It'll be you know, like kind of a retrospective of all of the eras and different projects, you know, that I did at Marvel. Another project I did at Marvel was I introduced are you familiar with the sci-fi author Philip K. Dick?
Oh yeah.
I was working with his daughters, actually, who run his estate, and I was writing some stuff for them. I wrote like a treatment for a film and TV series called Electric Ant. It's based on it's basically the short story. Often Philip K. Dick would write like 150 short stories and like 40 some novels, but often he would develop a novel from an idea he made in a short story. So a lot of people know the film Blade Runner, and then it came from a novel called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
Yep.
But Electric Sheep was kind of inspired by a short story called Electric Ant. And so I thought, instead of doing, you know, Electric Sheep, everybody knows that, and that's a novel. And if you start with a novel and turn that into something, it's usually a reductive process where you have to cut things out. So I thought I'll start with a short story that was the germ of the idea, and then I can add to it and let it breathe and let it flesh out. So I wrote for them a treatment for a film and TV series, Electric Ant. But I also had a meeting at Marvel. I went there in person to the Marvel offices and introduced the Philip K. Dick estate to Marvel. And I wrote a limited series of Electric Ant at Marvel that they later collected into a graphic novel. And I did the cover for that as well.
Whoa.
So I'll see if I can get their permission to include some of that in there as well. But yeah, I mean, comics have been such an interesting passport to so many different worlds for me. I was able to work with the Philip K. Dick, estate, and do, music videos and film and TV and more comics, and, travel the world with the State Department and meet all kinds of interesting people from all kinds of cultures, and, work with a variety of different people. So I'm so grateful for the medium itself, but all the readers and the readership that have been so generous to support us all this time.
That's so cool. So basically what I'm hearing is there's never a boring day in the life of David Mack. Like it's always an adventure or a new creative endeavor or something. That's awesome, man. It's hard work pays off, right? And I think, a lot of people don't see that or forget it. And like, thinking about like where you and Brian started, like, and where you guys are now. And I love that you guys are still close and stuff too. Like, it's nice to see in this industry where, especially lately, there's been a lot of critiques and a lot of weirdness going on. And so it's nice to see that still for a lot of people, like, hard work can pay off. You can do something in this industry and make something of yourself and have a life worth living. Right. It's not all like, predatory publishing deals and crushing deadlines that lead to depression. Like, it's just, there's a lot of things we've been hearing about lately that sometimes it's it gets to be a bummer to talk about comic books. And I think stories like yours are so important, right? Because it's like, no, like there are, yes, like, can the industry be better? Always, but there are also still like really good people in this industry who busted their ass for many, many years. And it has paid off and continues to pay off. And so, like, I love to see that. Honestly, man, again, this was like such a big deal and so cool to get to talk to you and explore your comic book journey and talk about some of these new projects that you have going on, man. I love your stuff. I love every month when we get to see new covers from you. I love that Echo's got a new mini series with Daredevil right now. I'm excited for November.
Yeah. Thanks for shouting out that cover too. Yeah, the writers are B. Earl and Taboo. Taboo from Black Eyed Peas, if you're familiar with the music group. So those guys are like always nice to me and in touch with me and stuff. And it's very cool that there's a Daredevil and Echo series coming out with art by Phil Noto, who's an incredible artist.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot going on. And after the Echo series comes out and this other TV series next year comes out, I'm working on, there'll be a lot of other things, we could talk about next time too.
Well, that's it. I'll hold you to it. It always makes me feel good when I feel like I didn't do a bad job when you guys say you want to come back and talk about more stuff. So, like, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm gonna print that out and hang it on the refrigerator. But honestly, man, like, congratulations on this campaign, on this art book. It's doing well. You know how Kickstarter works. I'm sure you're about to get another big bump in that last 48 hours, right? So like your numbers are going to get your numbers are going to get goosed up a little bit than what we just talked about. That last 48-hour Kickstarter miracle is cool to watch, right? So you're gonna get some last minute backers. Some people are going to experience that. You keep an eye out. Again, audience, like, listen to what David said. Keep an eye out for that Echo collection. Keep an eye out for the Dark Horse reprint of Cover and the upcoming Cover Volume 2. Like, these are all really, really great comics that I cannot recommend enough. And hopefully between David and I tonight we're able to build some of that buzz, get you guys to spend some of that hard-earned money. Because at the end of the day, that's all we're here for, is to sell books. I'm kidding. But we were here to talk about a Kickstarter campaign for a new book. Anyways, I won't shut up, David. This is a problem I have. So as the polite podcast host that I am, do you have like a newsletter or like where or like the best place to find you on social media? Like, tell everybody where's the best place to keep track of you.
Yeah. So if you're looking for like original art for me or prints, my comic art dealer is Kirby's Comic Art, which you can find at their website. There's prints of my work. There's original art and commissions that are available there. You can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, and Facebook. That shouldn't be difficult. And if you want to see some of the music videos I mentioned, you can see all those for free on YouTube. Just look up like David Mack, Dashboard Confessional, David Mack music video, David Mack, Amanda Palmer. Same with the the Winter Soldier or Jessica Jones titles, or the other titles I mentioned. But yeah, Phil, you can find. I have a site. David Mack Arts has some things as well. But yeah, feel welcome to say hi to me on Instagram. If you just type in David Mack, I'm sure it'll pop up.
Yeah.
And I will see you there. Thanks so much for all the support of the Kickstarter book, The Marvel Art of David Mack, and Clover Press publishing it with Marvel Comics. So super thanks for all of that support and all of your kindness. And yeah, I guess I should get off here and get back to work. But gratitude to all of you.
Yeah, all our listeners, thanks for tuning in. Darkwing did want to say about his art dealer is they offer excellent service, because it sounds like he's a repeat customer from them. But yeah, I mean, what you want in an art dealer is that, when we talked about earlier, the dangers of like shipping these like high price pieces and iconic pieces. So you want good shipping, and they will get you your product safe and sound. There's probably insurance and stuff involved too, I'm sure, depending on how much stuff costs. But yeah, like, feel safe purchasing from David's shop, from his dealer. Follow him on the socials, keep track of him. David, unless there's anything else you want to shout out, bud, I'm going to play the song and set you free.
All right. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks so much for showing up. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, David, thank you again. Everybody tuning in, thank you so much. Love more, hate less, read comics. We'll be back with more live shows later. Got some cool guests coming up. And Annie Nascenti is going to be on here next week. I've really been lucking out with people that have worked on Daredevil. I guess I need to reach out to Brian. I don't know. I know he's crazy busy though. But everybody, seriously, like, this show wouldn't be anything if you guys didn't tune in. I love you. I appreciate you. David, same to you, man. Like, thank you for making my show cooler. Thank you for talking to me, spending time with me. And I wish you nothing but the best. And I hope you have a great couple cons coming up over the next couple weekends.
Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.